They really are. Like I said, just came from that workout that we had out on the field tonight, and everybody was good. Even Ja'Kai Moore, who was limited and really didn't do anything in spring practice, he was out there running around tonight and looked fantastic as well. So we've been healthy this summer. Everybody that was out there in spring practice is back. And knock on wood, let's just keep everybody healthy going into practice and then preseason camp.
On the subject of offensive linemen, Justin Turntime posted a picture on Twitter like last week where he looked a lot slimmer than he did last year.
Yeah.
Can you speak to maybe what he's done to kind of transform himself that way?
Yeah, I think credit Kristen Cognitive Nutrition and Luke Day and their staff and what they've, done. Obviously, we've got fantastic personnel over there at our place and nutrition and in the weight room, and they've really worked with Jazz and all of our guys and then the assistant coaches about, holding their guys accountable, from that standpoint as well. But he's worked really hard and super, super, super talented, and he, along with a lot of our guys, have certainly changed their bodies around in a good way since we got here as well.
And what's up? GC Live here, Wednesday episode. I am Wes Mitchell. He is Chris Clark. That, of course, South Carolina head football coach Shane Beamer speaking on Monday at Williams-Brice Stadium, the first of the sort of restart of the Welcome Home Tour. They took a quick break in June, got back active with that. Beamer actually speaking twice today. I believe he's already spoken once. Have a couple of notes from Colin Taylor on that, but that video was from Monday at Williams-Brice Stadium. If you want to see the entire video, go to youtube.com/GamecockCentral. You can see it on there. And this show is, of course, as always, brought to you by our good buddy Clint Hammond of the Mortgage Network. He's the branch manager right here in Columbia, South Carolina. His NMLS number is 71597. Hammond at mortgagenetwork.com is how you can email him or give him a call, 803-771-6933. We certainly appreciate Clint. Not only a big supporter of the Gamecocks, but a huge supporter and reader on GamecockCentral.com. And a great time to refinance and maybe get yourself a little bit lower monthly payment. In some cases, Chris, a much lower monthly payment. So give Clint a shout. He's our guy, and he's our presenting sponsor. Chris, again, no shortage of things to get to. We are going to start getting to our roster breakdown. We had so much talk with realignment on Monday. We teased some quarterback talk at the beginning, and then we never even got to it. So we'll definitely get to that. We may get into some other positions as well, just depending on our time window that we usually try to stick to. But, again, like I said, man, Welcome Home Tour gets going again. Beamer speaking on Monday. Beamer speaking twice today. Beamer speaking tomorrow in Charleston. And, dude, you're not going to get a ton of information from these things. But you do get some little updates here and there. We find out for sure that South Carolina will report on August 5th. They start camp on August 6th. And Beamer saying, look, going into camp, everybody healthy. Reporting from Colin Taylor earlier today, Beamer reiterated that Marshawn Lloyd is not only full go, but basically 100% going into camp. That's something we sort of knew, but certainly in terms of his health, not ever a bad thing that Beamer reiterated that today.
Yeah, for sure. And, so much intrigue last year around Marshawn Lloyd before he unfortunately sustained that preseason injury. Obviously, Kevin Harris had a huge year last year for the Gamecocks at running back. But remember, Kevin Harris was more of I don't want to – this is going to sound insulting. He was a little bit more of a footnote or afterthought to Marshawn Lloyd because of the hype level. And not only the hype level because Marshawn was a 5-star, but because we heard as soon as he stepped on campus how impressive this guy was in practice. And so he gets put on the shelf, unfortunately, with the ACL injury. Kevin Harris does an outstanding job, has a great year. Now South Carolina enters the year with, a Kevin Harris on the roster, also Marshawn Lloyd, who's now fully healthy. People really raring to see him go, raring to see him, actually get his first carry as a Gamecock. He's already a guy that, he's been talked about as much as any guy I can recall who's never played a snap in a Gamecock uniform, and he has a lot of natural talent. And on top of him, Zaquandre White, Rashad Amos. There's several guys on this roster at running back that can really help, starting with those kind of top two. And Zaquandre White has kind of been the forgotten man, but was able to really establish his mark in the spring because those other two guys, were still on the shelf. But lots of talk about Marshawn Lloyd. Great news that he's continued to do well. Outstanding kid, great work ethic. And I'm looking forward just as much as everyone else is from a media standpoint to seeing him going this year.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And we'll get into an in-depth running back breakdown probably very soon. But I'll say this while we're on the topic of Marshawn. I think there's a good problem to have in the South Carolina backfield with those guys because, Kevin Harris was banged up quite a bit in the spring. Obviously, Marshawn was pretty much held out for most of the spring as he was getting back to 100%. He's been full go pretty much all summer, which puts him in a position where, he's coming off the injury, but he does not have any wear and tear as far as being a college running back. And there's going to be a lot of excitement for this kid. And I firmly expect, as good as Kevin Harris is and has been, and he's starting to get, I think, a little bit of the notoriety that he earned last year. He's actually starting to get it going into this year with some of the preseason stuff. But I firmly believe Marshawn Lloyd is good enough to push the issue there as far as playing time, as far as carries go. I think this will be a true rotation at that position with, I think, like you said, Zaquandre, as long as he can hold on to the football, which that's been a big focus for him, you've got some guys. When you look at maybe some unknowns at other positions, I think South Carolina will ride their guys at running back, and rightfully so.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the strength of this football team offensively, and when we say strengths, I don't want people to go back in October and November if the team hasn't performed very well on offense and bring up this show and say, Chris said that the running backs or the so-and-so is going to be the strength of this team, so that means they should be really good as an offense. When we say strengths, that can be a relative term. So when you look at kind of, if you're ranking them, running backs, receivers / tight ends, if we want to loop them together, quarterback and offensive line, those are your units on offense. So you kind of look at it and take away the big picture and say, what's the best unit on this offense? I think you'd have to pick running back and then probably offensive line, right? Because everything else is relatively unproven. So running back, you do have a good stable of guys there. You've got a guy that's done it in Kevin Harris. You've got a guy with a lot of natural talent. He's one of the best recruits in the country at any position in Marshawn Lloyd. And then you've got Zaquandre White, who obviously has talent as well, and some other youngsters behind him. So, intriguing group. And when another thing, Shane Beamer has said this before, when they kind of went through the roster and you look at who your best guys are. You look at, a guy like Jaheim Bell, for instance, at tight end. I mean, that's one of your top offensive players. And so you find a role for him. So this is a team that's going to have some question marks, particularly at receiver. You got to lean on your more proven commodities and your better positions. And so it's about finding ways matchup-wise to get those guys involved.
Yeah, man. And we got the hot takes firing here already in the comments. Aaron saying Omega Blake starts by week 4. If you make that call and you're right, Aaron, we will. I'll throw you something for free. If by week 4 that happens, I think that's a difficult ask for a freshman. There are receivers on this roster, man. It's not like DB where this was one of those situations coming in where we were looking at it saying that, DB, they've got to just go get some guys who can play. The end of last year with transfers plus guys going to the league, the position is decimated. At receiver, there are numbers. It's just like it's about, can guys step up and take snaps and then take advantage of their snaps. So I don't really know about that, but hey, that's what the preseason's for. If Aaron is right, then yeah, that would be a great call. Reed saying, how can people sleep on us? We have 3 or 4 players now on watch list for awards for the upcoming season. See, Unfortunately, though, Reed, most of the teams South Carolina is going to play have just as many or more players, I would imagine, on these same watch lists. So 3 or 4, it's just like you look the last few years. South Carolina has had draft picks. You look, J.C. Horn was the first defensive player drafted. Javon Kinlaw was a first-round draft pick. You look back, Brian Edwards was a draft pick. Shi Smith this past year. Ernest Jones was. There have been players coming through here. It's not that South Carolina has not put players in the league. To me, Chris, it's about having more of those players, more difference makers, and then having depth on top of that. When you play in this league, you're graded on I don't want to say you're graded on a scale, but basically you may have 3 to 4 players on the watch list, maybe more than the other teams outside of the SEC. But the teams you're playing all have difference makers like that. So South Carolina will be slept on going into this year. There aren't going to be high expectations for this South Carolina team. And frankly, there shouldn't be these crazy high expectations until they go do it on the field. And if I'm Shane Beamer, I actually want it that way because you use that to your advantage with your team when you're sort of trying to build them up internally and push all the right buttons internally.
Yeah, no doubt. You want it that way. You want to kind of the ideal situation is to have a deal this season where you kind of the expectations are lower and you kind of outperform them or you over deliver. That's what you want. Now, everybody's going to have different expectations, but on the whole, whether it's the fan base, the media, kind of the national or regional perspective on South Carolina, I don't think there's anybody out there, and I could be wrong, I haven't seen it, who's saying, South Carolina, they should really probably win 10 games this year based on, I haven't seen that, and I really don't think anybody rational is coming out thinking that. I think people have below that line, you've got some different takes of what may happen or what should happen. But you do want those expectations lower. And you're right, it's a good point. And that's not to, about the watch list, not to diminish any of these accomplishments for any of these players, but right now, you take like the Ray Guy watch list, for instance. It's a big list. It's not semifinalists, it's not finalists, it's not the winner. It's a really big list. These watch lists that come out preseason are very, very large. A guy like JJ and Ibari being on a watch list, he's going to have a chance, right? I mean, this guy is maybe a top 2 round draft pick. He had a really good season last year. He's an NFL guy. He's got a chance. Kai Kroger being on the Ray Guy, watch list, a little bit different because Kroger, he has a lot of potential. He's a young player. He's shown some good things, but he's also a sophomore. I mean, he's relatively unproven, right? But he does have some talent, so you make that watch list. So 2 points there being, like you said, Wes, a lot of people on watch lists now, especially in the SEC or against Clemson. I'm sure they've got tons of watch list guys on their roster. So you got that factor. And then you got the fact that a lot of these watch lists right now are pretty, pretty big. So it's about having, like you said, Wes, depth and a lot of those difference makers. That's the kind of guys, that you need. And that's what South Carolina is going to have to continue working on in terms of on the recruiting trail.
Yeah. And, I would say this, man, these organizations, they're incentivized to have a big watch list because they don't want to have to hear, well, why isn't Jimmy Brown on the watch list for the tight end award this year? But also, the more guys are on a watch list, the more it gets sent out as a release to every single school of a guy that you have. And that gets sent out to every single fan base, and it gives your award some promotion there. So the bigger, the better, I think, as far as the watch list goes on their end. And a lot of those awards probably don't want to have to come back and not have a guy on their watch list. And then that guy plays so well that he's a finalist because they may think it makes them look bad or something. Although I don't know if people really pay attention to that stuff enough to even care. as far as the watch list goes. But maybe internally, that's the conversation. Chris, speaking of conversations, we have officially announced our Gamecock Central kickoff party. So we would love to go ahead. I know didn't we tease the date on here before? I believe we've told people a little bit about it, but it's now official. Come on out. August 20th, Still Hands Brewing. That is in Casey, South Carolina. It's right off of, I think that's exit 2 off of I-77. Anyway, in the Midlands, great venue. Chris and I had lunch with those folks. What was that, maybe 2 weeks ago now, Chris? Awesome venue. It's going to be an awesome time. And Chris, I am hopeful that everybody on our chat here, everybody on the podcast, Gamecock Central subscribers, Gamecock Central non-subscribers, doesn't matter. If you're a South Carolina fan, we want you at Still Hands Brewing on August 20th.
You can not like our show, which would be weird if you're watching if you don't like it, but we have seen it before. You cannot like our site. You cannot like Wes. You cannot like me. If you like the Gamecocks, please come hang out with us. It's going to be awesome, man. Like you said, the Steel Hens, we've both been there before, but we got a really, really in-depth look the other day, a couple weeks ago when we went to lunch, and kind of got a sense for what this event's going to be like. We're still building it out. We're still adding elements every day, working on this thing. Indoor, outdoor, music by Patrick Davis. We're going to have special guests. Wes and I will be out there hanging out all day, and lots of big stuff that is yet to be announced, but will be coming in the future. There will be VIP opportunities if you'd like, but the event itself, if you just want to show up, is absolutely free. And I'm stoked about it, man. This is going to be, I think it's got the potential to be a really, really big party, and it is going to be a blast for sure.
Yeah, I have personal goals for how many people we may get out there. I'm not going to jinx it,
okay,
or put it out there and then it under deliver, because I believe firmly in that you under promise and over deliver to keep people happy.
There you go.
I gotta say, man, I think it's going to be awesome, and if we hit our goals, it is going to be incredible. In my opinion, I'm going to. So for those that are not on the audio version, those that are watching right now on the live version of our show right this second, you should see a link to further details pop up in the comments right now, no matter what platform you're on. So that's a free link, has more details. We will also be providing more details about these VIP tickets. The biggest advantage to VIP, Chris, in my opinion, isn't even a monetary thing. It is that it's not even a monetary value thing. It is that you will have a guaranteed spot to sit, because, again, it is a free event. This is not a ticketed event. So if you just want to come out, you can come hang out, but obviously there's only so much room when you have an event. So VIP, you're going to have a guaranteed area, place to sit. You're going to be a covered area. You're going to have some fans. You're going to have a built-in number of drinks. We haven't worked all this out, but Chris, I think we're safe to say some of this already.
Yeah.
You have a built-in number of drinks, special access to a bar. Chris and I will be walking around in that area. Food. Basically, you're going to be living the life of luxury if you're in the VIP area. So we'll have details on that. Again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's going to be a cheap ticket. It's because you're going to have a very nice area to hang out with, or hang out at, I should say, in the VIP area. But either way, whether you want to go VIP or you want to just come out and hang out, listen to music, listen to our speakers, then that's cool too, because we had two options really, to make it a completely ticketed event or to do like a freemium event where if anybody wants to just come, maybe they're a more casual fan, not pay up front, that's fine. I think this gives us, Chris, the best of all worlds, gives everybody options for whatever they want to do and how they want to do it. And again, 7 p.m. is the kickoff of the event. That is the start of the event, but we will be out there for most of the day. And I believe I can go ahead and say this as well because it just got locked in today. 107.5 The Game will be broadcasting live from the event up until that 7 o'clock start. I know for a fact they'll be out there for their 4 o'clock show. Quite possibly will be out there for their shows before that as well. There will be prizes. There will be former Gamecock players at the event. And again, Chris, Patrick Davis in the Midnight Choir. I'm pumped, man.
It's going to be a blast, man. You just gave such a, like, I've been involved in planning it. I'm definitely going to be there, and I've been excited. But your monologue there explaining it all made me even more excited. So if I knew nothing about it, I would definitely be ready to come, and I would be ready to buy a VIP ticket. Not on sale yet. Probably next week, right, Wes, is when we're looking at probably launching the VIP ticket sales. Expect them, I think, Wes, to probably go pretty quickly. So just kind of keep it in mind. We posted some stuff on the Insiders Forum about VIP tickets already. A lot of people are saying they're going to, hey, put me down for a couple. So they're kind of waitlisting it. So we'll see. Now, Masso 1954, our motels near, special rates. Yes, I do not have it right now, but we have 3 different hotels who have graciously helped us sponsor this event. They will have special rates. This afternoon, I'll be posting those on GamecockCentral.com. So keep a lookout for that. We'll probably put it right in. If you go to the front page of GamecockCentral.com, you'll see the steel hands. You know, the Gamecock Central preseason kickoff party. We'll probably drop those in there. You'll be able to go directly to those links and book at the special rates, and we'll post them on the Insiders Forum. And Wes just dropped the link again for the party announcement. So in there, at some point this afternoon, I'll be updating it, and I'll also put it on social media and stuff. I know a lot of people coming in from out of town are going to be looking for hotels. Help us out, help our sponsors out, and stay at one of them. 3 really good options for hotels that'll have special rates for people at the party.
And so, by the way, y'all, if you are a business owner, you're a marketer, you work in marketing at a business, we do still have a couple of sponsorship availabilities left. I think it's a great opportunity to get yourself in front of hundreds of Gamecock fans out there locally, and obviously we'll get you some exposure on our site, on our, on the lead in to the event as well. It's not just for the event. So reach out. I'm Wes at GamecockCentral.com. He is Clark at GamecockCentral.com as far as email addresses. Let me know, and I will send you some sponsorship packages, or Chris will send you some sponsorship packages where you can see what is available to you there. But yeah, hope you're out there. Chris, we promised quarterbacks. Let's dive into quarterbacks. I have a feeling this will remain a conversation at least until the first game. And usually it just kind of comes with the position. It will be discussed throughout the season, I think. Your initial thoughts on the roster regarding quarterbacks at South Carolina?
Wow. Broad question there. Initial thoughts. So I do have a couple things that come to mind. First, unsurprisingly, entering and exiting the spring, Luke Doty was QB1. And I think this is no, huge shock or surprise by us saying this, Wes. And I know I can say us because I know you agree. We've talked about it before. Every expectation is that Luke Doty's the starter game 1 and probably the starter throughout the season, right? I mean, he's the guy that has experience, albeit limited. Sometimes I've said half the season, and you've come in and said, actually, it's about 2.5 games. So you're right. So actually, which is good. No, you're right. I mean, he played in a handful, 2.5, not a starter for long. And so this is a guy that's got limited experience, but he's got some. And has obviously a lot of talent, a lot of the leadership abilities that you look for. Of course, some things that the staff, Marcus Satterfield, really tried to hone in on in the spring. and throughout the offseason, mainly related to just, look, we all know Luke Doty has legs, what he can do, and he has natural ability throwing the ball, a very natural thrower, as Marcus Satterfield's pointed out, but just working on running the offense, facilitating the offense, standing in and making those throws. And so is there work left to do? For sure. But he does have talent and ability. Go beyond that, you don't have experience. Colton Gauthier, big kid, big arm, freshman, has a lot of the moxie and the things you look for. Jason Brown, who obviously did a great job at St. Francis and, is still coming along, in that offense, but has some talent. My other main thought, Wes, related to this whole thing, aside from Doty, was earlier, I think it was our man Craig Godwin, who's here like every day on the show. We appreciate him. Said something like hot take, Gauthier is QB2, or did he say QB1?
No, he said QB2.
QB2. Okay. So I get that. I don't think that's a hot take, though, honestly. I mean, I agree. That's where it was exiting spring. So it's and that's not a guess on our part. That's really where it was. So I think that, when you look at the backup situation, is it still going to be a race? I think so. But Colton Gauthier was number 2 coming out of spring, and he could certainly, stay on track to do that. This kid with a lot of talent.
Yeah, and I that was a point I was going to make as well. But to give you the complete rundown, the quarterbacks on the roster right now, you have Doty, Gauthier, Connor Jordan, Jason Brown, and then Jake Helfrich, who was a walk-on freshman from Providence Day up in Charlotte, North Carolina as well. So that's a complete rundown. But yet, Gauthier going into the spring game was the number 2 guy. So I think, Chris, that did get overlooked quite a bit by people. Like they sort of, glossed over that as opposed to acknowledging it because of what they saw from Jason Brown in the spring game. Well, the totality of what happened in the spring had Gauthier as the backup. Now, I do think that Jason Brown, coming from a spread offense that was a true spread offense, missing some time at the very beginning of practice, and sort of having to figure out all the little ins and outs of playing in the SEC. I think it was a difficult transition at first, but I do think there have been some positive signs this summer. He slimmed down some. Beamer has talked about how much he has improved in that area, putting in the extra work. I'm not in the sort of category of some of these people who saw 5 throws in the spring game and were like, that guy's the starter. But I'm also not in the completely give up on Jason Brown category either. I think there's obviously some talent here. I think it would be an absolute shock, though, if anybody other than Luke Doty we always, when we say stuff like this, we're always assuming everybody's healthy.
Yeah.
If everybody's healthy, I think it's at 95, 90, maybe 99% that Luke Doty is your starter game 1 going into this season. And sometimes, Chris, you see and hear things publicly, and then you hear the other side of it privately when you're around the program. That is not the case here. We hear the same things publicly about the quarterback race as Beamer has said, or we hear the same things privately as Beamer has said publicly. And that is Doty's the guy, and it's up to someone else to rise to that level. Now, in a perfect world, Doty will keep rising, and the guys that are chasing him will as well. But this is his job to lose, and I don't see him losing it.
Yeah, and it's not popular, going back to the backup thing. I don't know if it's popular or whatever the word is nowadays to kind of keep a level head about it and not say, based on the spring game throws, that Jason Brown not only should be the number 2 starter, but should be or the number 2 quarterback, but should be the starter based on just the spring game. Let's throw out all the other 14 practices, everything else that nobody saw. Nobody saw it. Not even us, the coaching staff and the players were the only people that saw it. Basing it just on that, you can't do that. You can't say that. You got to base it on the totality of everything. We've even, Wes, and it's okay. That's what we're here for. People have even argued with us, said Jason Brown is the coaching staff has already said privately he'll be the starter. Like, that's been a take. And it's just to clear that up. No, that's not the case. The expectation, again, is that Luke Doty will be the starter. There's no conspiracy or anything behind it. That's just where it is. Now, I'll also say, to echo your point, Jason Brown's a kid that there's still a good bit to like, and we're probably thinking a little bit more in terms of QB2, that battle between Gauthier and Jason Brown. But that could still end up being close at the end of the day, just because you look at Brown, he has a track record. It's in a different type of offense. It's at a different level. But he does have some things like you said, trimmed down this offseason, has a quick release, has arm talent. That's there, right? But I feel like so many people got caught up in Jason Brown, and that's fine. It's nothing wrong. But based on that spring game and based on some things he did at St. Francis, that they kind of forgot about Colton Gauthier and kind of disregarded, well, he probably can't really be the backup, That's not really fair to Colt, because the coaching staff really likes him. He's a big 6'4" kid with moxie and smarts, who's pretty athletic and has a big arm, big live arm. And he also did some things during the spring that earned him, that designation. So it's kind of like you said, what the depth chart is kind of publicly, and what we've heard and what has been portrayed by Shane Beamer publicly is where things are privately too.
Chris, so let's look ahead to the future of the position. That's one thing I think we're going to try to do with all these. Talking present, then we'll push it forward real quickly to the future. With quarterbacks, it's very hard to go too far into the future, because if you start getting ahead of yourselves, you always will have transfers, right? So because if you look at the quarterback position in college football today, everybody brings in one per class, sometimes two, and then you just can't project it 3 or 4 years down the road, because there is roster turnover at that position more than any other position. But important to note with these guys right now, I'll just go through the scholarship guys. Doty, listed as a sophomore, technically has 4 years of eligibility left. Gauthier is a freshman, so he has 4 years of eligibility left. Jason Brown, listed as a senior, technically has 2 years left. So, I think you look and there's plenty of years left. If Doty just takes the bull by the horns and is clearly the best guy for this entire year, that puts him in a great position and the team in a great position moving forward. Now, Jason Brown, it's not, if he doesn't start this year, that doesn't mean it's over for him, because he does have another year of eligibility, and maybe a year getting comfortable. It is a good case for him, is maybe a best case for him. And then Colton here, he's the guy that I think you look at long term. With young quarterbacks, you always talk about upside, right? But I think the people at South Carolina have been very impressed with the upside of Colton. And I think there's something about the swagger that he sort of brings to that position as well, that I feel like this kid has a bright future, and I'm sort of excited to see how quickly he inserts himself when you start to look, year 2, year 3 down the road as far as he is concerned.
Yeah, it's a good point on Colt. It kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, and that people have kind of forgotten about him. And I don't know that would have been the case. Like if South Carolina had Luke Doty, and let's say they would have brought in, they technically did bring in 2 quarterbacks in this past class, right? But if it was just 2 freshmen, if they'd signed Colton Gauthier out of Georgia in the 2021 class, and they'd signed, what was that fake name you used earlier, Wes? Jimmy Smith? I can't remember. Some other quarterback from high school. I don't know that, people would probably be talking about Gauthier a lot more. I think there was a little bit of an assumption when Jason Brown signed with South Carolina as a transfer that either A, they were bringing him in to start, or that B, he was automatically going to kind of be inserted as the backup to Luke Doty. And there are valid reasons to, maybe just think either of those things kind of off the top of your head without diving into it. But look, if he would have come in and this spring just outright won the job and was the best guy, he might have exited spring as the starter, or maybe there would have been more of a quarterback battle, but that didn't happen. And I think that kind of goes back to Chad Godwin from Facebook asked, don't see how we don't have Brown as top 2, something us fans don't know. And I would say, just in a real respectful way, whether it's fans or media, yeah, there are things that we all don't know because we don't observe practice on a daily basis. We don't see practice. We don't grade the tape. All that we have all seen collectively, fans, media, is a spring game in which there's a lot of different matchups going on. The team had tons of guys out in that game. So people aren't really paying attention to that touchdown was thrown against a walk-on DB or whatever it may be. So, yeah, there are things that we don't know. And so I think part of it is Jason Brown's status as a guy that A, transferred, B, he came from a place where he'd had success, and then they're not being kind of a proven commodity on the roster. By that, I mean a multi-year starter. If Luke Doty was a senior, we wouldn't be talking about any of this stuff, I don't think. So all that kind of opened the door. But what you have to do is kind of back up and say, hey, what do we hear? What are the coaches saying publicly? And then does that match up privately? In this case, it does.
All right, Chris. So coming in after that, Braden Davis. After that, South Carolina heavy after what? Dylan Lonergan, heavy after, a couple of other guys in that class. I think you're always looking ahead at that position. We got to see Braden Davis throw at South Carolina's camp in middle of June, I guess, was when he was there and throwing. I actually thought he was better as a passer in that setting than I maybe anticipated. Rivals dropped Braden Davis from a 4-star to a 3-star. My assumption is based on some camp performances. So I didn't know what to expect. We knew he was a big kid, big upside, great athlete, great kid, great worker, all those things. I didn't quite know what to expect from him as a passer. I thought he delivered the ball pretty well. Now, I think it will be important if you sort of look at the future of the position, you have to keep adding on. When it comes to 2023, can you go out? Can you add on? Can you keep stacking that room with more talented guys? But your thoughts on Braden Davis and then that position moving forward.
Yeah, so Davis, he's an interesting prospect. And to go back to what you said, I wasn't sure exactly what to expect with him throwing the football because of some things that we had heard and observed. And I still think it's a valid point. He's not a finished product as a passer. But he was good that day in camp that we saw. Big kid, delivered the ball well. I thought he threw it with accuracy, touch. Obviously, he's physically impressive with his size. And one thing that we have not seen a lot in high school and film that's going to be a bigger point of emphasis for this year is he runs. I mean, he can run from a physical standpoint. He's a like a higher 4.5 guy as far as his just straight line speed. And talking to his high school coach earlier this year after he committed, he made a point to say, hey, we're going to encourage Braden to run a little bit more because particularly playing up in Delaware, I can repeat this because his own coach said, he said, there's not many guys in the state that are going to be able to tackle him, a big 6'5" kid that can run in open field. So you look at the physical tools and the mental makeup, a lot of things to like about Braden Davis. I think it's going to be important, and South Carolina, hopefully for them, will be in this position to where you can bring in Davis and not have him have to hit the field in year one, where you can bring him along. But from a tools standpoint, there's still a good bit of potential there.
Yeah, no doubt, man. So you start looking ahead past that. Like I said, Dylan Lonergan, probably a top target for a lot of people. I think nationally, there is a sweepstakes here in the Arch Manning sweepstakes that actually probably has a little bit of a domino effect or a trickle-down effect on the rest of these top guys, potentially. But from what we understand, South Carolina 100% in it with Dylan Lonergan. I would expect him to probably be at a game this year, take in the atmosphere, get another look at the program. Had a really good look at the program in June when he took an unofficial visit. Right now, he's way up there, though. This is one of the top quarterbacks in the country. Then I think you look more from a local standpoint. Carson Black has taken multiple visits now, is very interested in the program, and received a ton of attention from Marcus Satterfield on his visits as well. So if we're looking ahead, it's not just those two guys by any means. But for 2023, those are the two guys I think probably we should be talking about the most right now, unless, Chris, there's just somebody I'm not thinking about.
Yeah, definitely others on the board that South Carolina is going to monitor, even some guys that had picked up offers in the past, some of them previous staff that, the staff will monitor. But those are the main two in terms of just mutual interests. As you said, Carson Black, there's been a lot of involvement there. In-state kid, he was back on campus 7-on-7. We got a good look at him that day, Wes, and he had, I thought, a pretty nice performance that day. Also saw Dylan Lonergan out of Georgia in camp back in June. Really talented baseball player also. You mentioned the Arch Manning angle, and interestingly, obviously Ole Miss is one of the programs, especially with the family tie there, vying for Arch Manning. And like you said, that's one of those kind of dominoes that could set some other things into motion. There's other guys across the country that applies to too. But Dylan Lonergan actually told me a couple days ago that he might go visit Ole Miss before this dead period's up in July. So a little bit of carryover there. Ole Miss program that he's also looking at. And then North Carolina's, another one that's been pretty involved with him. But Gamecock's definitely in it. Eric Kimry, recruits that area, has done a good job. Marcus Satterfield heavily involved, and they're heavily in it there. So those are, I would agree, main two to watch there.
Yeah, you go out even farther, obviously some in-state guys. I'm huge on Jaden Bradford at Chapin, class of 2024. We'll continue to monitor him. But, that's quarterbacks. That's our breakdown. That's our thoughts. I'm sure we'll be talking quarterbacks on Gamecock Central, on GC Live quarterback conversation never really stops, does it? But that's, again, our breakdown. And as always, that breakdown brought to you by Clint Hammond of the Mortgage Network, 803-771-6933. All right, let's move forward, Chris. We did have a super chat here from Greg Lee, throwing in the $9.99. I love how people on super chats, is it set up with different prices, or do you just put it in? Because I think it's funny when people do, like the $9.99 trick. Isn't that psychologically why places put $9.99 to make you think you're not spending $10 on something? Or I know obviously businesses do $9.99, $9.98, $9.97, whatever. I don't know if that's like a set thing or Greg just picked that, but it is interesting. Greg's question: of the freshman wide receivers on the roster last season, so you're down to two there. Obviously, Mike Wyman, transfer portal. So you're talking what? Jakari Caldwell and Rico Powers. Who have you heard good things on, and who do you expect in the mix this season? I'll be honest, haven't heard much lately about those guys, Chris, as far as specifically anyone singling them out. I heard a lot about both of them going into last year. Both of them got on the field. Both of them played some snaps. it was sort of a little bit back and forth as far as who was ahead of who, I feel like, last year. But, yeah, I mean, you'd really love for one or two of those guys to step up at some point.
Yeah, definitely. And you're right. It has been a little bit more quiet on those guys, and I think we'll learn more about them in preseason. I will answer a part of the question, though. Who do you expect to be in the mix? Everybody. Everybody at receiver, seriously, is going to be in the mix because that's still an area in which South Carolina is searching for some guys. They were not among – there were a few kind of this core group of guys, Wes, coming out of spring that we heard the most about at receiver, and that was – DeCarrion Joyner, Jalen Brooks, and then Josh Vann as a guy that, the last couple weeks of spring especially kind of came on. And so that would certainly be a positive if they continued that and carried it over. Beyond that, it was kind of like you said earlier, the numbers aren't a huge issue at receiver because from a scholarship standpoint, and even guys that have some talent that have just been derailed for whatever reason, mainly injuries on a lot of these guys, there's a large group of guys that are all kind of vying for time. And so I think as time goes on, the best ones will rise up, especially in preseason camp. And I think with Caldwell and Powers, they're two different types of receivers, but both guys do have some ability. So not a ton of specifics yet as to where they are in the pecking order, but I think we'll certainly learn more about that in preseason.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm hoping, dude, that we're able to get out there and see a little bit of it. That's something we have not been told. There was a question earlier. Let me see if I can go back and find it. Always trying to pay attention to these things. God, where was it? It was about when the coaches would be available, Chris. You remember that one?
I did see that one.
There it is. I got it. Patrick Bowen. By the way, shout out to Patrick. I understand this is his birthday week, Chris. So shout out to Patrick. Early happy birthday to him. He is a loyal listener and watcher here on GC Live. We don't know exactly when the coaches will be available as far as during spring practice, but actually the first ever Beamer golf tournament, Chris, today is Wednesday, so it is tomorrow.
Tomorrow, that's right.
I believe. And from what I understand, a bunch of the assistants will be available to speak around noon tomorrow. So Beamer's going to have a formal press conference. Some of the other guys will be talking, and yeah, so that'll be your next opportunity to hear from the assistant coaches. So tomorrow might actually be a decently newsworthy type day as far as maybe hearing who are some guys that the coaches have been impressed with, who's gone above and beyond. I don't know about specifics we'll be looking out for, but a decent chance you get some news tomorrow.
Yeah, it'll be a good opportunity. Cool move by Shane Beamer to reinstitute kind of the media golf tournament thing. Wes and I will not be swinging a single club tomorrow. Thank the Lord for everyone. I'll speak for me. You've told me you're terrible at golf. I haven't ever seen it. Trust me that is not my bag, not my cup of tea.
Colin representing Gamecock Central out there, though.
Colin is. I'm a little worried about his performance, but I have seen the lineups, and so especially there's some guys like Matt Neesmith. There's some very good golfers in there. A lot of the coaches are very good golfers, from my understanding. I would wager that most of the media are somewhere between below average to absolutely awful at golf. And so I think even though Colin, I'm not anticipating a great performance for him, but I think he'll acquit himself just fine relative to our other counterparts in the media. So it'll be good, but a cool move to reinstitute that. And when we do have the full schedule, a lot of people have asked not only about the media schedule, but just the practice schedule, the full schedule, and hey, will fans get to see any? We'll let everybody know that as soon as we have it, but we do not have a full schedule yet. By the way, Wes, before we move on to the next thing, I dropped a link in the chat on YouTube and Facebook. It looks like for some reason didn't go through well on Twitter, on Periscope, but Facebook and YouTube, I posted a link to special discounted hotel rates at not one, not two, but three preferred hotels. If you're coming in town for the kickoff party on August 20th, definitely check that out. Get a special group rate from our friends at 3 different Marriott properties. Take your pick and stay at one of those for the party. It's at Steel Hands. That means you could have some Steel Hands brew, find yourself a hotel, be safe, and stay in town.
Yeah, and Chris, I would also just go ahead and maybe push people to Uber on out there. Uber out there, go hang out at the hotel. There will, I believe, be a shuttle to the extra parking. But our hope is that Gamecock Nation comes out in such force for this party that we start running out of room to park.
Yep.
But I know that's annoying for people who are coming out there. So Uber if you can. Stay at the hotel if you're from out of town. Just Uber in if you're from in town as well. But if that's not an option and you don't want to do it, Mass, is alcohol available? Is that Steel Hands Brewing? I hope I dare say there's more alcohol available at this facility than probably about any facility in the Midlands. 15,000 square foot space, to be exact, with on-site brewing. So, yeah, Steel Hands Brewing. That's what the brewing part means. Massa, you got to read the release, man. Hit the link. We got all the information in there.
It could have been coffee or tea. A big tea brewery.
Okay. Yeah, maybe. But all right, I completely lost my train of thought on that. Yeah. What are we talking about, Chris?
Ubering. We're talking about Ubering.
Yeah, Uber out there. If there is going to be extra parking, that you can park there, and then there's a shuttle that just runs back and forth at all times. So we'll make it work. We'll have room.
And Wes, one more note when you're talking about shuttles. I can't speak for the other two, but the Courtyard Marriott on Assembly is one of the hotels in our special group rate. They run a shuttle. I can't swear to the times that it runs, but they run a shuttle from their own shuttle from the hotel to locations in town. So if you book there, or if you want to call before you book, check on their shuttle when it might run on August 20th, and they can probably also run you back and forth, or at least run you there if you want to stay super late past the time the shuttle runs. So check with them, but check out those hotels.
Yeah, run you there and then Uber back. Chad Godwin, I don't know why you're hitting the sad button on Facebook. We had all positive reactions until something we just said, and Chad hit the crying face. I don't know what's up with that. Anyway, that's about going to do it for this show, but let's finish with something fun. Chris, a topic of discussion has arisen on Twitter. Imagine that. Among the Gamecock Twitterers. And Chuck Hendricks on Twitter says, Texas and Oklahoma asking to join the SEC, and Gamecock Twitter is over here like, does slaw go on barbecue sandwiches or not? This was started by our friend Mike Yuva, who believes slaw does not go on barbecue sandwiches, or as our good buddy Mike says, goes on pulled pork sandwiches. Chris, slaw on a barbecue sandwich, yay or nay? And all commenters right now, yay or nay on slaw on your sandwich?
I have several thoughts. First of all, I got distracted by the fact. So I'm assuming because Mike calls it pulled pork, does he call a grill a barbecue? I'm guessing, I bet you he does. And if you go to somebody's house, like if I invited you over, hey Wes, we're going to grill some burgers, like he would probably call that a barbecue. Like, come over to my barbecue.
Probably.
Or I'm going to put these burgers on the barbecue.
Yeah, we got a lot of no's.
So I'm a no on the slaw, just because when it comes to my preference, I'm not putting slaw on my pulled pork. I don't think you need anything. I might slip some pickles on there. Maybe I don't. If it's good, you don't need anything. I take slaw on the side. But if you want to put slaw on the barbecue sandwich, it doesn't bother me. It really doesn't. So if you make me say, I also say no, but I'm not personally offended by it.
Okay, I dig it. I respect it. Okay, and I'll tell you this: there are two people that have the correct answer out of all these people,
Okay.
and it's actually our old buddy Masso and Tim on Twitter. And their answer was, if the slaw is worthy, or as Tim said, the correct slaw, the right kind of slaw. In my opinion, a barbecue sandwich, if it's really good barbecue and the right sauce, is perfectly good without slaw.
Yeah.
But some restaurants design the whole flavor profile to where slaw is supposed to go on it. Like, you can't just take any barbecue sandwich and any old slaw and throw it together. But if it was designed to have the slaw on it to where it's like the type of slaw that goes with that type of barbecue, absolutely yes. I would love some slaw on there if it's good slaw, because slaw is one of those things. The distance between great slaw and bad slaw is a very big difference.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, some things like macaroni and cheese, really hard to mess it up. Like, I'll pretty much, dude, I grew up eating Kraft macaroni and cheese, and that stuff as a kid, it still tastes pretty good. Like, the distance between great mac and cheese and just regular old mac and cheese, you're still sitting pretty. Great slaw, way up here. Bad slaw, no. I'm out. Don't need it. And that probably, if you haven't had that sandwich before, the safe bet is probably to get the slaw on the side and then give yourself the option, if you like it, put the slaw on there.
Yep.
Would be my take.
Very thorough breakdown. I agree. And I think you can really get into the weeds and talk about not only the taste of the slaw, but how is it cut? How much moisture? Are you toasting your bun? Because you might have a fine, if you put the slaw on your sandwich and you have not toasted your bun, now your sandwich is soggy, and that's no good. So I'm good. I've done slaw on the sandwich. I typically do not do slaw on the barbecue sandwich. But the thing I feel strongly about is a grill is a grill, a cookout or whatever. It's not a barbecue, and a grill is not a barbecue. So we'll get an answer to that. That should be the bigger topic of conversation.
Yes, Vince says the more we say the word slaw, the less appealing it sounds. Fair point. I'll give you that. Good point, Vince. All right, final thought here. Be on the lookout on our Twitter page. That is at Gamecock Central. I'm still working. I don't know yet if this is – I would just post the numbers on the podcast right now, but I don't know if it's set up yet. So be on the lookout, Chris. Text to win. We're actually starting a Gamecock Central news text alert system again, and we're doing some text to win stuff. So be on the lookout on Twitter. We're going to give away a $25 gift card to one lucky person who signs up for the text. And you don't actually have to sign up for the text to win. You enter the contest. And then I believe, in theory, we're going to send you another message that says, do you want to be part of our breaking news alerts? You can say yes, or you can just not respond. But we're going to give away a $25 gift card. The Grand on Main, great spot, cool venue. They have bowling there. They have games. They have a bar. They have sit-down, seating and food and all that stuff. So $25 gift card to the Grand. Be on the lookout. Twitter is at Gamecock Central. Hoping to post that here very, very soon. But for Chris, I'm Wes. That's GC Live, and we'll see you all very soon.